Imagine a child who wants a cookie really badly. He knows exactly where the cookies are, but knows that he shouldn't take one unless he has permission from his mother first. So he goes over to his mother and asks, "Mom, can I have a cookie?" And the mother kindly says, "No," and leaves the room. We all know what the child does next. He goes over to the table, climbs on top of it, removes the lid, takes his little hand and digs into the jar and pulls out the cookie that he wants. In order to cover his tracks, he takes the lid, carefully places it back onto the cookie jar, and runs to his room before anyone can catch him. Now we're left with the question, who stole the cookie from the cookie jar? Except in this case, we know who stole the cookie. It's the kid who has the cookie crumbs all over his fingers. It's the kid who has the cookie crumbs all over his mouth. It's the kid who's left the most evidence behind. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is not about cookies. This case is about murder. My name is Sharnae Smith, and I represent the state. We are here today because the defendant, Alan Blizzard, is charged with the first-degree murder of ATM, Adam Thomas McKenzie, and the second-degree theft of Mr. Joe Kabinski's van. And this is how it all began. Alan Blizzard is a skating rink owner. He bought an ATM from Adam Thomas McKenzie after Adam Thomas McKenzie told him that he would make between $2,500 and $2,000 a month from buying this ATM from him. Instead, the opposite happened. He was losing $1,000 a month with this ATM contract, and he wanted a way out of it by any means necessary because Mr. McKenzie would not let him out. In the meantime, Alan Blizzard, the defendant, needed new carpet in his skating rink. So he called Joe Kabinski, the carpet layer of the town. The defendant knew that Adam Thomas McKenzie and Joe Kabinski had a connection. And this connection was Mr. Adam Thomas McKenzie and Joe Kabinski's wife were having an affair. So these two are connected because of money, and these two are connected because of an affair. Joe Kabinski was called in early May by Alan Blizzard to come in and make measurements for the carpet. So he came in and made the measurements, and they set a date, June 2nd, for him to come in and install the carpet in the skating rink. June 2nd is the day of the theft of the van, June 2nd is the day of the murder, and June 2nd is the day of the installation of the carpet. June 2nd, Joe Kabinski arrived at 10 a.m. in the morning to begin to install the carpet. He pulls off the old carpet, throws it in a dumpster outside of the skating rink, and does this for about 5 hours until about 3 o'clock hits. And this is when the victim arrives, Adam McKenzie. He arrives at the skating rink and has a meeting with his boss who employed him through the ATM machine. They had a heated argument inside of the office. Voices were raised. We have witnesses to testify that they heard voices raised in the office. And next thing you know, the victim storms out of the office and out of the skating rink. He storms out of the skating rink, and closely behind him was the defendant. Next thing you know, there was a big bang sound in the parking lot. They said it sounded like a car backfired. In the meantime, Joe Kabinski is witnessing this, but he's still laying the carpet. Not too long after that, he goes out to his van to get new glue because he ran out of glue and noticed that his van was missing. The defendant was nowhere to be found, did not come back to the skating rink for a couple hours, and Mr. McKenzie was not heard of anytime after that. The next morning, Mr. McKenzie was found dead in a dumpster next to a warehouse where Mr. Kabinski held his business out of. But the cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. A single gunshot wound to the back of the head. There was a gun that Adam Thomas McKenzie allegedly kept under his front seat that is now missing. That the defendant knew about, but Joe Kabinski did not know about. The van was also found that same day 1 mile away from the skating rink with the fingerprints of the defendant on the steering wheel and on the inside of the back of the van. In order for us to convict the defendant of first-degree murder, we, the state, have the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt, which is you are entirely convinced by what we give you, beyond a reasonable doubt that Adam Thomas McKenzie is dead, that the defendant's actions is what caused his death, and the killing was premeditated. We know that Adam Thomas McKenzie is dead. We wouldn't be here otherwise. We know that he died from a single gunshot wound to the back of the head, but we do not know who the killer is and whether it was premeditated. But I'm here because we have evidence. We have evidence of fingerprints that link us to the defendant on the steering wheel and in the back of the van. We also have evidence that there was an argument, a heated argument, the day of the death, the day of the murder. We also have evidence of premeditation. That evidence is he knew about the affair between Joe Kopinski's wife. He knew about the gun under Adam Thomas McKenzie's seat. He knew. Well, actually, he will testify that he moved Mr. Kopinski's van without permission before, but he had no idea that this happened. So he moved his van without permission. All of these things point us to the defendant. The child who stole the cookie and Mr. Blizzard, the defendant, have much in common. They both, once they asked permission for what they wanted and didn't get it, they decided to take matters into their own hands and take what they wanted. They know that they could try to pin this on anyone because no one saw them do anything. But what they both did was leave evidence behind for us to track them down and indeed show that they are guilty as charged. We, the state, want you to find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder and guilty of the second-degree theft of Joe Kopinski's van. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Opening statement.